Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about this morning. I'm so glad that we moved some things around. So we have guests tomorrow. We have Sheriff Allard on tomorrow. But today, it's just you and I. We have that much to talk about because not only do we have a kind of framework deal about Greenland, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, we're also going to talk about Trump's speech at Davos, some other speeches at Davos, and at the statewide level, a New York judge has ruled that the only GOP-held district that has parts of New York City is unconstitutional, ordering a new map. So apparently we're going to be doing new maps consistently in New York. I should also add that the judge, who is Jeffrey Perlman, who actually worked for Governor Hochul. Who else? There's a laundry list. They don't put it in the ABCs, CBSs, NBCs, but doing a little digging, looking into it, the judge worked for Hochul, Andrew Stewart Cousins, I believe it was, some others. We're going to talk about that in depth because it has huge implications. That is Representative Nicole Malatakis. That's her seat. So the judge ruling it's unconstitutional, essentially wanting to put it in the hands of Democrats. He was, the judge, Perlman, was asked to recuse himself because of his prior work with Hochul, and he refused to do so. New York Republican Party Chair Ed Cox said this was a partisan ruling made by a partisan judge in a case brought by a notoriously partisan attorney. The Staten Island Brooklyn Congressional District has existed for almost 45 years. We're going to talk about that in depth. The Democrats celebrating on it. And then that should come as no surprise anyway to kind of rig the system. We'll be talking about that later on, and as I said, Greenland and others. But first, let's go. We're going to start the program with some oddball stories that there's no way to segue. And most importantly, we're going to start with viewer comments like this one. Oh, wait, I'm out of order. Wait a minute. I'm out of order. Just as an update from yesterday. Good morning, Frank, says Jack. Jack said, all went well with the hip surgery. Doctor ran late from a previous operation, so I was stuck in the room with no cell phone from towards the end of your show till I went in the operating room. That was actually the worst part. Watching your show prior became frankly focused to me. Kept my mind off the surgery. Thank you. Well, thank you for the kind words, Jack. We're glad that everything went well with the hip surgery. Frankly focused, the much better version of Frankie Focus from Governor Hochul. Continuing, Jack, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Jack, by having anterior hip replacement more than made up for it. Doctor doesn't use glue or any screws. Wow, that's amazing. Last time I had the left hip surgery, lost a week of recovery because 2 weeks after surgery of all things, while running an electric chainsaw, I slipped and fell almost directly on the hip. I won't do that again. Yes, I don't think you're going to have to worry about chainsawing right now, hopefully, but with this potential storm on its way, you may want to find someone else to do the shoveling as well to be on the safe side. So thank you, Jack. Glad to hear everything went well. Comment from Mark, who also says good morning. A scope of what has been done in his first year, meaning President Trump. Negative net migration for the first time in 50 years to the largest homicide drop on record. Trillions in reshored investments. Peace deals ending multiple wars. Record energy production. And massive bureaucracy cuts and lowered drug prices. I think he's doing an awesome job. Thank you, Mark. We can also add what we learned yesterday, drug overdoses plummeting because of his crackdown on illegal immigration. So thank you for that, Mark. We appreciate it. Comment from a different viewer. Some of these came in after yesterday's program. This one later last night. Trump even has Scott Bessent trolling at a master level. Yes, if you didn't see his comment about Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, I have another piece that we may get to later on in the program, talking about how he fell flat at Davos. He tried too hard. He was trying to be a troll, and it came off almost needy. It came off, like he maybe, what do they say, jumped the shark. He's done his shtick a little too long. We may talk about that. But what Scott Bessent said about Gavin Newsom, I love this. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros. I think it's very, very ironic that Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ben, I think that's Ken, Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. So yes, thank you for passing that along. I did see that. I see, who else was, someone was booed by Al Gore. I can't remember who it was. Ludnick was booed by Al Gore. And he said, wow, what an honor to be booed by Al Gore. But I like that. Sparkle Beach Ken. Okay, comment from a different viewer. When I was offered the, pardon me, it's dry out there. When I was offered the door along with 18 others approximately 13 years ago, and this means in the education system, after many years of service and education, locally it was starting then. If you were too conservative, you didn't fit the mold. I'm very grateful they paid me to leave. It's liberating, and I would have quit or been fired anyway because I'm proud to say I didn't fit the liberal mold. And speaking exactly that, and thank you for sending that along, we've been talking about the bias in education. We've talked about the indoctrination in the education system, starting all the way from kindergarten all the way up. There's a piece at the Washington Examiner asking the question, why are so many K through 12 educators prone to violent rhetoric? I don't know if you saw, we didn't mention it yesterday, we ran out of time, but there was a teacher that questioned basically the intelligence of one of her students. I think it even maybe got physical because a student was standing up for ICE. Well, two Propel charter school employees who, listen to this, who posted on social media celebrating a news report from Iranian state media detailing Tehran's promise to kill President Donald J. Trump, which said, quote, "This time it will not miss the target." Remember, we mentioned that at the time, Iran's state media sending that out with a picture of Trump in the kind of the historic fight pose with blood trickling down, and Iran state media saying this time it will not miss the target. A clear threat, assassination threat. These teachers, the grown-ups in the room at this charter school celebrating that post by Iranian state media, they did end up losing their jobs. The employees' videos, which appear to have been recorded in a classroom at a Pittsburgh-based charter school, shows them smiling at the report before giggling and crossing their fingers, suggesting they hope that Iran will not miss its target. After the media video was first posted, the charter school placed the employees on leave. By Sunday, they issued a statement saying their behavior violated school policies. Quote, "Following a formal review process conducted in accordance with our policies and applicable labor agreements, the individuals involved are no longer employed by Propel Schools." Propel Charter Schools were founded 22 years ago in the basement of an old Homestead hospital. Since then, the network has grown to serve more than 4,000 students across a dozen school districts in Pennsylvania. The incident comes 18 months after Trump was shot and injured in western Pennsylvania at the Butler County Farm Show Complex, and 4 months after Charlie Kirk was fatally assassinated. This says shot, let's call it for what it is, assassinated on a college campus in Utah. After both events, teachers nationwide faced disciplinary action for controversial social media posts, either lamenting the assassination attempt for being unsuccessful on Trump or celebrating Kirk's death. In July of 2024, days after Trump was shot, Cassandra Olson, a Sioux Falls School District middle school behavior specialist, wrote, quote, "Shoot, if only he would have had his scope cited correctly." That's what the middle school behavioral specialist wrote online. The South Dakota School District acted swiftly, saying in a statement that the staff member was no longer employed at the school. Olson was one of several educators who either lost their job or had their teaching license pulled for wishing or celebrating harm on Trump. The volume of educators posting on social media to celebrate the shooting or express regret that Trump survived was unprecedented. It was not surpassed until the death of Charlie Kirk. Kirk's assassination also prompted celebratory posts from educators online. Education Week reported that teachers in California, Florida, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, North Carolina, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Texas were either fired or placed on leave ahead of investigations into social media comments celebrating or slyly implying their approval of Kirk's death. There was one locally, too, in New York. I don't remember the exact town So you could add New York to that list that Education Week omitted for whatever reason. But that person, I remember bringing it up at the time, their social media post saying, there's nothing you could do. I have tenure. Laughing and celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who just wanted to have the conversation, wanted to have the debate. These are the grown-ups in the room educating children. What makes the incident at Propel this past week especially troubling is that it is likely not the last of its kind. It has left many parents asking what sort of influence or even rhetoric teachers may be bringing into the classroom, not only in public schools, but also in charter and private schools. When people ask why more parents are turning to homeschooling, the answer is obvious. It is not just poor academic proficiency in public schools, but also the culture among some teachers. What educators have posted makes that clear. So just to tie that in with that great comment from the viewer, and something that we talk about frequently that I thought you'd find interesting. And then we wonder why there is the riots in the street. We wonder why there's the anti-Semitic protests when we see what, unfortunately, these young kids are being indoctrinated with. All right, let's go through some quick stories that are there's no way to segue. Wow, I'm already running late. Here's one, your thoughts. PETA. You know the organization PETA. They want Punxsutawney Phil, as we near Groundhog's Day, they want Punxsutawney Phil to be replaced by a hologram. The animal rights organization, a radical animal rights organization, sent a letter to the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club's president, Tom Dunkel, requesting that the fluffy weather predictor be replaced with a dazzling 3D projection, complete with vocal weather predictions, to let Phil and his family retire from the annual February 2nd ceremony to a reputable sanctuary. PETA founder Ingrid Newkirk said pixelated pop stars are headlining concerts and long-departed celebrities are attending conventions. So why not put the technology to good use on a hologram that lets the real Phil hibernate in peace? PETA is urging the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club to chuck its tired tradition of harassing a shy animal and give Gobbler's Knob a glow-up with a phantom prognosticator. There you are, your thoughts about ruining another tradition and how everything is just so fun in this political environment. Also, because we've mentioned this really since Monday, your thoughts on, because we have so many Bills fans in the audience, your thoughts on Terry Pegula's press conference yesterday. Well, first, Buffalo Rumblings, a Buffalo Bills community website, says Buffalo Bills press conference reinforces why Terry Pegula rarely takes media questions. The Buffalo Bills held a bad press conference Wednesday with Terry Pegula's miscues at the center. He's getting heat because he threw Sean McDermott under the bus regarding Keon Coleman and that pick. He fired Sean McDermott over one game, but the Bills were also cheated out of that win. I would also say put the onus a little bit on the sadness of Josh Allen. It was very strange, and it's been years since Terry Pegula took reporters' questions, and it should come as no surprise. We had mentioned yesterday how some are concerned because he has ruined franchises like the Sabres in the past, and I think this is an overstatement, but I want to ask your opinion. Well, I can't remember what outlet this was on, and I apologize. It's by Andrew Gridardo, and he says, how to lose a fan base in 10 hours. Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane have broken their silence about the firing of Sean McDermott. Their explanation only made things worse. Have you ever watched C-SPAN? Sometimes you'll catch a congressional hearing where the person being interviewed is completely out of their depth. The interviewee jumbles their statements, or else blusters, abandons lines of critical reason, and reverts to defensiveness, utters sentences you can't believe they would have the gall or lack of awareness to say out loud. They altogether make the situation worse for themselves than it was before they brought their lips to a microphone. On another note, Terry Pegula and the newly appointed president of football operations, Brandon Beane, held their first press conference since firing head coach Sean McDermott. I think they're making the connection there. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We're more of a news organization, a news site, but I don't know why I'm struggling now. A news show. But I do think because we have such Bills fans out there, I'd just like to hear your opinion. on that because it is newsworthy in the sports realm. All right, we've got a lot more to talk about before we get into Greenland, before we get into that New York judge who worked for Hochul, now deciding that a congressional district that's been around for 45 years is unconstitutional. Just happens to be that will exclude a Republican from winning that race, essentially. The congressional district is the only section of New York City that is controlled by a Republican. So we'll talk about that as well. A couple other things about New York. We're going to breeze through some really weird stories before we get to Greenland and Davos. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Just getting warmed up, but it's moving quickly.
A concert of diva showstoppers featuring a Glinda and Elphaba from the Broadway company of Wicked.
Quite as popular.
Good Witch Bad Witch has been thrilling audiences coast to coast with their stunning vocals and playful banter. Good Witch Bad Witch, February 5th at the Clemens Center in downtown Elmira. Tickets at clemenscenter.org.
Did you know that children growing up with poor air quality have smaller lungs and higher rates of asthma than children that grow up with good air quality? And unfortunately, poor communities have poor air quality. IQ Air Foundation is working to change this. Today, the IQ Air Foundation provides filtration technology to schools with poor air quality through our Clean Air for Kids program. Our goal is to help over 50,000 school children every year breathe over 90% cleaner air indoors, helping to level the playing field, reduce barriers to learning, reduce sick days, and increase test scores. Mitigating poor air quality is key to environmental justice. Help Clean Air for Kids reach more children at iqairfoundation.org.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Now look at that view. It's deceivingly messy out there, slippery. So please be careful on your way into school or your way into work. I know we've got some stormy weather coming this weekend. All right, let's go to some viewer comments here. Jack writes in, Democrat king judges have been given way too much power in this country. It's like a few king judges can run the state and country. Why aren't Republican judges speaking up? That's a fair question about Republican judges. And yes, they, in many instances, act as if they have more power than the president of the United States. And we've seen that time and time again. Steve writes in, good morning. Well, good morning, Steve. Was absolutely amazing to watch Trump getting all those people to sign the Board of Peace. To sit there and think that they're allies and others that have always been at odds with one another in agreement to try to create peace in Gaza. The other revealing thing that happened in my mind was Gavin Newsom sitting there saying nothing to say here, even though those with eyes and ears actually heard Trump say how much he wanted to help Gavin Newsom and said he's a nice guy, but just needs to reach out to me and we'll get things working because Trump is in charge and not globalism. I believe this is the main reason for all the hostile actions towards Trump. I believe that is definitely part of it. I also think it's because he can effectively use his power, unlike some past Republican leaders, without naming names. That's not worth getting into, but can actually get the job done that not just other Republicans, but Democrats haven't been able to do. You know, actually making good on his campaign promises. How many presidential candidates and future presidents have made campaign promises where we've almost accepted the fact that, well, they're not going to actually really do it. That was just a promise, and then they don't do it. Trump working towards all those things he promised, and that drives them crazy. But yeah, I mean, said very nice things about Gavin Newsom, but Gavin Newsom was a flop on the world stage. Now, again, the media wants him so badly to be president that they're going to wash over it, just like they're sadly washing over the California wildfires and the riots that he handled in just a disastrous way. So, yes, they want him, and so they will glance over it. But I do have a story about it. Hopefully we can get to later on. A couple things quickly. Did you see Barron Trump saved his friend's life? A friend of Barron Trump told a UK court he saved her life when he dialed police after seeing her being attacked by her ex-boyfriend on a FaceTime call. The woman reached out to Trump in the midst of a violent dust-up with her former boyfriend, Matvia Rumistev, who allegedly started battering her because he was jealous of her friendship with the president's son. Trump, who's 19, he was in the United States at the time, quickly called for help, telling emergency operators, "I just got a call from a girl I know. She's getting beaten up." After giving her address, he urged them to hurry to the scene. During Rumstev's subsequent trial, the unidentified woman told the jury that the Trump son saved my life, saying the call she placed last January was a sign from God. Police responded to the scene of the emergency call, told her someone in the U.S. had called them, but didn't tell her who it was. Body cam footage showed. During her conversation with the officer, she's told them, quote, "I'm friends with Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son." The officers asked her to call him back to confirm what she told them, and the footage captures her saying, "Hello, Barron, did you call the police or anything?" He can be heard replying, "I had someone call the police. She called me. I picked up the phone expecting a nice hello or something." Trump said all he could see was a ceiling on the video call, which lasted about 10 to 15 seconds before it cut off, but he heard his friends screaming, crying, and being hit. "I called you guys. That's the best thing I could do. I wasn't going to call back and threaten things to him because that would have just made the situation worse." There you go. Interesting story this morning, and good on Barron Trump. All right. I know we all want to talk about Greenland, but hear me out. I've got 5 or 6 stories I want to get your opinion on, and then we'll talk about Davos, and we'll talk about Greenland. Oh, boy. Speaking of Greenland and kind of the fight with Europe over Greenland, as predicted on this program, and normally some of the predictions I'm not a big prediction guy, but we'll preface it by saying it's an easy prediction, that they'll attack Trump on this or that. This one, I think I was a little ahead of the curve on. So Trump calls off the tariffs on Europe, and the headlines read taco. Yes, there was no way for Trump to win. If you're not familiar with taco, it means Trump always chickens out. So again, we have a deal in place, or at least a framework for a deal in place for working with Greenland. And it's a prime example of there's no way for Trump to win. And we said that yesterday on the program. And sure as shooting, I saw the headline was on Drudge Taco. So if he would have kept with the, as they would call it, rhetoric about maybe even using force, which he changed on that later yesterday, but using force to take over Greenland, that would have been disastrous. Now that he's working with them, that's disastrous. Prime example of the media and their bias. Speaking of media and their bias, how about, is that how I want to go into this? Well, the FCC is going to crack down on some liberal talk shows. We're going to talk about that first. In a big update from the last couple of weeks' broadcasts, a House committee voted on a bipartisan basis yesterday to hold Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress, teeing up a full vote in 2 weeks' time in the lower chamber that could result in criminal charges. The House Oversight Committee voted 34-8 to hold the 42nd president in contempt for refusing to comply with their subpoena to testify about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. 34-8. We'd like to know who that 8 is. It's always tough to find those votes, but obviously partisan, showing those 8 their hypocrisy when it comes to the Epstein story. But remember, and I know I'm probably belaboring this point too much, but Bill and Hillary Clinton, their excuse for not testifying to find out more about the sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein, their reason was they were fighting for our country. They were fighting for our country by not testifying before the Epstein investigation. The resolution stated that Bill Clinton, quote, impeded an oversight committee investigation into the government's handling of probes into Epstein and his imprisoned madam, Miss Maxwell. It also claims he had obstructed their inquiries into, quote, the circumstances and subsequent investigation of Epstein's death, the operation of sex trafficking rings, and ways for the federal government to effectively combat them, ways in which Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell sought to curry favor and exercise influence to protect their illegal activities and potential violation of ethics rules. President Clinton's willful refusal to comply with the Oversight Committee's subpoena constitutes contempt of Congress and warrants referral to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia for prosecution as prescribed by law. The House lawmakers also voted. So remember, Bill, it was 34-8. For Hillary, it was 28-15. Republicans appeared eager to move toward eventual criminal charges and prosecution for both of them when asked about the contempt resolution. Representative Derek Van Orden saying they're going to be held in contempt of Congress and they need to be jailed if they don't come in here and speak to Congress. They are not special. Let's see. Now, what's interesting, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and ex-White House advisors Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro have all faced the same fate as the Clintons at the committee level. But only the latter two, Bannon and Navarro had some words yesterday, not feeling too sorry for the Clintons. Those were the only two that were held up, being held in contempt by the full House, prosecuted, convicted, and made to serve time in federal prison. Again, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. And that was because they refused to testify before the House Select January 6th committee. Navarro told the Post yesterday the difference with Clinton is no executive privilege was invoked, and he's facing a duly authorized committee. If he gets a subpoena, he has to come, full stop. Clinton can't argue, as Steve Bannon did correctly, that the committee was illegally formed and therefore the subpoena was illegal. The Clintons could serve up to 1 year, but not less than 1 month in jail and be fined between $100 and $1,000 if prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced. Republican and Democrat members of the oversight panel had voted to issue subpoenas to Bill and Hillary last July. So there you are. We don't need to give you the whole story, but I thought that was an important update to give you. Yes, I realize I'm running late. A couple things before we talk about Greenland, Davos. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Some moments call for more than a drink. They call for a scotch. Rich, patient, crafted over time. Every bottle tells a story.
Yeah, I'll take it.
What?
Bit drafty in here.
Foster's. Elevate your spirits.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age, including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Ken writes in, the president just concluded the signings and speeches at the Board of Peace. He expressed his regrets for overlapping Frankly Speaking by 15 minutes. Well, it's okay. For something as historic as the Board of Peace, no hard feelings. Yes, thank you, Ken, for bringing that to our attention. President Trump unveiled his Board of Peace charter that created, quote, peace in the Middle East and vowed to end more wars during his ceremony in Davos. This was early this morning, our time. Trump was the first to sign the charter alongside the minister of the Prime Minister's Court of the Kingdom of Bahrain and Morocco's Foreign Affairs Minister. I may try to pronounce the countries involved. I'm not going to dive into names because I'm not sure I can pronounce other countries either. Trump said, we have peace in the Middle East. No one thought that was possible. We settled 8 wars and another is coming as well. You know what that is. Today, the world is safer, richer, and much more peaceful place than it was 1 year ago. He even made some comment that Iran even may be interested in joining on. But Trump, who is the chair of the board, was joined by dozens of world leaders from 19 other countries, including Argentina, Bahrain, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, Hungary, Indonesia, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Pakistan, Paraguay, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Morocco, United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, and Mongolia. I don't think I did too poorly there. Now we have one of the most important meetings of what is known as the Board of Peace, he said. He said the Board of Peace will work in conjunction with the United Nations. Last September, we released a plan for the permanent end to the conflict in Gaza, and I'm pleased to say that our vision was unanimously adopted by the United States Security Council late last year. The Trump-chaired Board of Peace originally was conceptualized in September as part of the president's 20-point Gaza peace plan. Trump said, if Hamas doesn't do what they say they will do, they were born with rifles in their hands, but they have to give up their weapons. If they don't do that, it's totally the end of them. Now, we don't have to go into the past on this, but Trump said, we are committed that Hamas must return the last remaining deceased hostages. That will be the full commitment, and we'll get on to bigger things. We're committed to ensuring Gaza is demilitarized, properly governed, and beautifully rebuilt. We're going to be very successful in Gaza. Once this board is completely formed, we can do better. We could do pretty much whatever we want to do, and we'll do it in conjunction with the United Nations. There's tremendous potential with the United Nations, and I think the combination of the Board of Peace with the kind of people we have here, coupled with the United Nations, can be something very unique for the world. Together, we are in a position to have an incredible chance to end decades of suffering, stop generations of hatred and bloodshed, and forge a beautiful and everlasting glorious peace for that region and the world. We're going to have peace in the world. As invites went out to the countries this month, Trump has floated the idea of the Board of Peace greatly expanding from its original mission. It's going to get a lot of work done that the United Nations should have done. Despite its name, Vladimir Putin is among those to accept an invitation to the board, which Trump explained as an asset rather than a liability, saying, yeah, I have some controversial people on it, but these are people that get the job done. These are people that have tremendous influence. If I put all babies on the board, it wouldn't be very much. The United Kingdom announced it would not be joining the board right away because of concerns with Putin joining, saying we won't be one of these signatories today because this is a legal treaty that raises much broader issues. And we do also have concerns about President Putin being part of something that's talking about peace when we have not seen any signs from Putin that he will be committed to peace in Ukraine. All right, there you go. So that is a breaking news story that happened just moments ago. Thank you again, Ken, for bringing it to our attention. Before we go, as promised, I have a lot to get to quickly in this segment, and then we're going to dive into Davos, not just about what President Trump had to say, but because this is really, to Ken's point, he said it jokingly, but and I appreciate that, but it is right in the middle of, frankly speaking, so we're learning along together about what exactly is going on. Sounds like very, very positive news. I'm sure that we'll listen to this. How CNN reports it. The signing ceremony featured representatives from fewer than 20 countries and no Western European allies. So again, the mainstream media finding a way to be upset with something called the Board of Peace. Speaking of the media and the bias in the media, when we return, the FCC cracking down on liberal talk shows. I know a lot of people in this audience have called for that in the past. We'll give you a look at that, and then a couple quick blurbs about the bias in the media. Then on to Davos. Then on to Greenland. Then on to, I don't know, a lot of other stuff to talk about. Whew, it's moving fast. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
An albino baby buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bus.
Day one of the National Glider Competition.
I'm Grace. I'm Ida, and I lived in California. Timmy was just a puppy when I moved in. He's a emotional support animal. I had Missy, who is 15 years old and blind. Likes the people, he likes to greet all the people. All the employees are happy to see him. I feel that my pets are very welcome here. I feel very welcome here. I think it's great.
I was diagnosed at 65.
37, earlier than most.
Every 9 minutes, someone is diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
And every one of them can turn to the American Parkinson Disease Association. Visit apdaparkinson.org to learn more and show your support today.
You can just keep watching and scrolling, and the world will still feel like it's falling apart.
Widespread missile attacks. Highest hospitalization. Evacuation in the west.
Or you can take action by joining a movement that's creating real and lasting change instead. Partnering with communities around the globe to help uproot poverty and plant seeds of hope for a brighter tomorrow. Because at World Vision, we believe that no situation is hopeless. Join a movement that's changing the world for good.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. It was amazing how Trump's threat to not just be part of NATO any longer has gotten all these countries to realize that without the United States, they are nothing. Anybody that thinks any differently about that obviously has not realized NATO is a joke. When Saudi Arabia and Iran sit on the board for human rights, there is no saving an organization that puts the fox in charge of the henhouse. How quick do you think all those military organizations will leave Greenland now also? Seems though they tried to show a front that was just a false facade. Great point. Thank you very much. Mark writes in that speech at the summit on Greenland, Trump slipped up and called Greenland Iceland twice, and the media is running with it. I saw that. It's another, gives them an opportunity to question his mental health, the exact things. You think of all the mistakes, how little Biden spoke during his 4 years and how many mistakes in that little amount of time. And of course, that was nothing to see here by the media. And now Trump, who just recently, as of yesterday, right, gave a 2-hour press conference on 2 days ago on the 20th. And again, they're nitpicking that. So I saw that, Mark, and it was already making the rounds on Drudge and places that hate Trump. Comment from a different viewer. Wouldn't it be grand if Trump ended up with his own well-deserved Pulitzer Peace Prize from the world pressure towards the prize committee? I got to reread that. Sorry, there was something in the background. Wouldn't it be grand if Trump ended up with his own well-deserved Pulitzer Prize from world pressure towards the prize committee? Jack thinks if they don't, it could weaken the worth of a prize. Here's the thing, Jack, and I agree. I think the prize has already been weakened. I think that really came into focus when they gave Obama the prize so early on, and I think it's almost accepted. But yes, news organizations are still going to put it on a pedestal, but I think most reasonable people now realize that it is nothing but a bias award. It is run by a far-left organization. So yes, it would be great if the world came together and said, you better give them the Peace Prize. I still have my doubts on that, but we'll see. Time will tell. All right, as promised, a couple of quick things that I think are going to pique your interest before we dive more into Greenland and Davos. The Federal Communications Commission said it will step up enforcement of politically driven daytime and late-night programming to ensure equal treatment for both sides of the aisle. The three major broadcast networks were issued guidance regarding their compliance with the Communications Act of 1934's, quote, statutory equal opportunities requirement, which requires equal access to broadcast station facilities for legally qualified candidates regardless of political affiliation. The law states that if a broadcaster allows one eligible candidate to appear or use its facilities, it must offer the same chance to every other eligible candidate for that office. Quote, a person is a legally qualified candidate for purposes of the FCC's equal opportunities or equal time rule if they meet certain requirements, including having publicly announced their intention to run for office and qualifying under applicable state or federal law to hold the office being sought. While a long-running bona fide exemption has allowed news programming to avoid providing equal time to opposing candidates, the FCC said it has not been shown that evidence exists that interview portions of any current airing late-night or daytime talk show meets that standard. The government's broadcast regulator cautioned that programs motivated by partisan purposes are not entitled to exemptions under long-standing precedent. The FCC saying any program or station that wishes to obtain formal assurance that the equal opportunity requirement does not apply in whole or in part is encouraged to promptly file a petition for declaratory ruling that satisfies the statutory requirements for a bona fide news exemption. I know this is a little wonky. The FCC said it's vital that broadcasters and legally qualified candidates understand equal opportunity rules that may require comparable airtime and placement for opposing candidates going forward. In a follow-up statement, the FCC Commissioner, Ana Gomez, ensured that nothing has fundamentally changed with respect to our political broadcasting rules. The FCC has not adopted any new regulation, interpretation, or commission-level policy altering the long-standing news exemption or equal time framework. For decades, the Commission has recognized that bona fide news, interviews, late-night programs, and daytime news shows are entitled to editorial discretion based on newsworthiness, not political favoritism. While the principle has not been repealed, revised, or formally considered by the Commission, the announcement does not change the law, though it reflects a shift in enforcement posture. The First Amendment does not yield to government intimidation. Broadcasters should not feel pressured to water down, sanitize, or avoid critical coverage out of fear of regulatory retaliation. So, FCC Chair Brendan Carr doubled down, saying for years, legacy TV networks assume that their late night and daytime talk shows qualify as bona fide news programming, even when motivated by purely partisan political purposes. Today, the FCC reminded them of their obligation to provide all candidates with equal opportunities. Now, if you do look at the numbers, and we don't have to go through this, but The View hosted 128 liberal guests throughout 2025 while inviting only 2 conservatives, actress Cheryl Hines, who I wouldn't even say she's a conservative. She just happens to be married to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and former Republican Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, speaking of The View, Joy Behar wants her legacy, her time on The View, her legacy to be remembered for getting Trump out of office as she calls for invoking the 25th Amendment on the president. Imagine the delusions of grandeur, where kind of a washed-up comedian goes on The View, becomes a host, and decides that her goal in life, because she believes in her mind she has the power to do so, is to get the sitting president of the United States out of office by invoking the 25th Amendment. She said, quote, I want my legacy to be that I helped get Trump out of office. That's what I really care about. Okay. I want to do it. They noted the co-host had done it once before. Wow, what was this on? Oh, it was a podcast hosted by The View executive producer Brian Teta. So Brian, producer at The View, believes that Joy Behar is so powerful that she got him out of office once before. I guess that means when he didn't win re-election. I did. I want to do it a second time. This time he's much more dangerous than he was before. So Joy Behar actually thought that she was the reason that Donald Trump didn't win the 2020 election. Keep that in mind when you think about the delusions of those on the left, specifically in the media, because people in media live in a bubble. I know I'm running late. They live in a bubble, and they're surrounded by yes men and fellow like-minded travelers echoing each other's statements. So they believe they have the power. It's like when you see those exposés about the political power of Saturday Night Live. It's the same thing. Joy Behar thinks that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election because of her. Behar said Americans should call on their members of Congress to invoke the 25th Amendment against the president because she believes he is, quote, destroying the United States of America. Teta said he didn't think that would happen, prompting Behar to suggest impeachment instead. And we know that if Democrats win in the midterm, there will be impeachment nonstop for 2 years. White House spokesperson Taylor Rogers said joyless Behar is an irrelevant loser whose legacy will be marked by suffering from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. President Trump's legacy will be talked about for generations to come all around the world, but no one will remember joyless Behar's third-rate TV show. Behar had said during the podcast, find a way to impeach and convict because he obviously has been committing crimes. He's making a lot of money in the presidency. When are we going to invoke the 25th Amendment? Does he have to run naked into the White House or what? What is that amendment for if not this? Okay. Oh, that was back in December when he put those plaques under the former presidents. That was her comment back then. Also, speaking of media bias, Chris Cuomo warns CNN's Scott Jennings that he better stop using the term illegals, as Scott Jennings has refused to do so. News Nation host Chris Cuomo warned Scott Jennings yesterday that if he keeps using the term illegal aliens, somebody might beat him up. Cuomo accused Jennings of acting like a bully and a tough guy when he dismissed activist Cameron Kasky's assertion that you, quote, don't get to say the word illegals anymore. I kind of thought, I'm just saying, I kind of thought that kind of woke culture was over because I thought I've heard illegals used by other people than Scott Jennings. Jennings refused to stop using the term and repeatedly asked Kasky, how are you going to enforce your edict on me? Chris Cuomo, the brother of Andrew Cuomo, kind of a disgraced newsman for his coverage of his own brother, but he got a gig with News Nation, saying, what are you, a bully now? What are you, a tough guy? Because you're talking to this kid who happens to be right, calling people illegal. And now, if you don't know the history, look it up of Chris Cuomo being a bully himself. Remember, during the height of COVID, when his brother had shut down the state, he was out traveling, even though he had COVID at the time, traveling to a new house that he had that was being built, getting in people's face when they confronted him about it, as he had COVID. When they said, aren't you supposed to be in quarantine? You have COVID, and he got in their face. When he was called Fredo by someone in, I believe it was a Subway, he got in their face and tried to be a bully. So now his tough talk is to bully Scott Jennings for being a bully. Chris Cuomo, like his brother, has delusions. In this case, Chris Cuomo has delusions of this kind of toughness. Cuomo said a long time ago, Democrats and Republicans agreed to call them undocumented instead of illegal because it seemed inhumane. That's why they changed the vernacular, and you know it. What are you? You're a tough guy now? I thought you were supposed to be the simpering but open to conversation Trump defender? Growing increasingly unhinged, as was his kind of calling card back when he was on CNN, he suggested Jennings might end up getting assaulted. Be careful. You want to be a tough guy. There are plenty of tough guys out there. You want to see how somebody can make you say illegal, and then what are you going to do? Sue? Tough guy? So now he's coming up with some idea that Scott Jennings is going to be assaulted and then go, you're so tough, you're going to sue. He's making all this stuff up in his head. It's kind of scary where Chris Cuomo's mind is at. But again, this is the guy that threatened people in the subway for calling him Fredo and then compared Fredo to a very, very bad racial slur. Then, as I said, in COVID, it was different rules for the Cuomos during COVID. So finally, Cuomo wraps up saying, so if somebody beats your blank because you're being rude and disrespectful and causing division in this country, that's causing distress and pain all over the streets and making people want to hurt one another, if you really want to be a part of that, as the expression goes, and I'm not going to use the term mess around, we'll say, and find out, don't be a tough guy, said Chris Cuomo. Woo. All right. I know. We got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, here we go. No. I keep doing this and I run late. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/BigFoxNews.
Nearly 5 kilos of cocaine has been seized and a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
An accident can turn your life upside down in an instant. Pain, medical bills, time off work, it's overwhelming. And when you look to the insurance company for help, they don't see you. They don't see your family or what you've lost. To them, you're just a number, just dollars on a spreadsheet. Their job is to pay you as little as possible. At WYDC Injury Law, we see the person behind the claim. We fight for your recovery, your future, and your peace of mind. If you've been hurt in New York, call 607-500-HURT.
What's our stories? The warmth of our laugh? Or our family's secret sauce? We all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Yes, if you are just joining us, Trump unveiled his Board of Peace during the signing ceremony when Davos just recently wrapped up his speech. And that ceremony. Comments from viewers. Mark says, I saw a post on Facebook, don't know how true it is, but it says Melania Trump might enter the presidential race for 2028. If she does and she won, it would be 4 more years for Mr. Trump. I would not believe that Facebook post. The only reason I say that, she seems to have no real interest in the politics side of things. Yes, she has her causes, which she champions and does a great job. I don't see a scenario. I don't see a scenario where that is the case. She doesn't. And also, she wasn't born in the United States. So that is also another fly in the ointment that I just thought of. So I would say that was someone having a little fun on Facebook. I wouldn't put too much faith in him. A comment from a different viewer. Hey, Cuomo, stop proving the fact that you don't believe in the First Amendment unless it pertains to you being able to control other people's right to free speech. The whole Cuomo family is such a joke. I knew them growing up and they were just little spoiled brats. Oh, really? Their father must be rolling over in his grave if he's able to see what they have become. Thank you for that. Yes, just his whole career, Chris Cuomo has been kind of an entitled, arrogant jerk. And he proves that he had seemed to calm down, but I think the only reason to calm down, it didn't make as much news in the conservative circles because he was kind of a non-entity anymore once he was off of CNN. I know he has his News Nation program, but not the kind of attention, especially that he had when he was interviewing his own brother during COVID. But yeah, different rules for COVID for him, getting in people's face, bullying them a lot, but now he's acting like a tough guy once again. But since Mark brought up that hypothetical that I don't believe can or will happen with Melania, how about this? Michelle Obama said she would actively work against a hypothetical third term from Barack Obama. Asked by a podcast host, Alex Cooper, if Obama would consider running for a hypothetical third term, the former First Lady said, I hope not. I would actively work against it. Well, that makes 2 of us. Michelle, I'd be at home working against it. I do believe in the need for new vision, right? I mean, the 2 terms is not just about we like them and we want it. It's just like we're changing and growing so fast. This is a hard job and it requires new energy, new vision all the time. New ways of looking at the world, right? So I do believe that 8 years is enough. She also said there'd be no room for younger leaders to step up if the same ones kept running for office. Anyway, we've had enough of that hypothetical. Now, speaking of elections, it is said what's going to happen to the midterms. We'll talk about it in a second. Stay with us. Our last break of this hour. Keep those comments coming in.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that can happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone.
New York State nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. Lee Com Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
There have always been a few, ready to fight and win. Since 1775, these few have been Marines, and they come from across this land to defend the future of our nation. This year, our Corps celebrates 250 years, and Marines are proud to serve this country, each other, and all that is still to come for America.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A comment from a viewer: Chris Cuomo was and is a punk. Well, Chris Cuomo was interviewing Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who's loving this attention. He says, Frey, there's a moral imperative to not cooperate with the feds on immigration enforcement work. Wow. A moral imperative. These people have some lofty ideas of the power that they have and what their words mean. Also, we learned, just as I was looking at some other updates this morning, on Wednesday's broadcast of Morning Joe, House Minority Leader Representative Hakeem Jeffries commented on the possibility of a government shutdown. It looks like they're going to fight against funding ICE. They're wondering if Chuck Schumer, though, will cave, saying that among things that we believe are appropriate in this instance are demanding to be part of any final bill would be a requirement that ICE should not be able to storm houses of worship, hospitals, and schools. Interesting, but it's okay if you're an anti-ICE protester, we have learned. Kind of fascinating. Okay, Trump plans to go all in on the midterms. As we wrap up this hour, we'll wrap up on this, and then we're going to get to Davos and Greenland. President Trump will treat the November midterm election like a presidential campaign, according to senior leadership, telling the New York Post. Traveling like he's on the ballot, flooding key races with cash, and hammering home how his policies will help Americans with affordability. He's going to campaign like it's 2024, said Susie Wiles. Thank you, Susie Wiles, for speaking with the New York Post and not the Atlantic. The White House views Republican control of Congress as essential to maintain Trump's power. Obviously, if not, you'll talk about 2 years of impeachment and who knows what else they'll come up with. Trump plans to campaign as if he's personally on the ballot and enlist his heir apparent, Vice President J.D. Vance, as a regular presence on the road. Cabinet officials will also be dispatched to tout the administration's record. So, again, looking at places that are competitive, he will be out there. Since 2024, Republicans have been outperforming Democrats in voter registration in every state in this country. That's a huge deal and has never been the case before. The number one indicator of how people are going to vote is what party they're registered with. I want to keep the House and keep the Senate, even by one. One is a victory. Trump will be heavily invested, not just in campaigning, but spending some of his nearly $300 million he has tucked away in his MAGA Inc. war chest. He's going to behave as though he is on the ballot. So that means some spending. That means a lot of travel. That means a lot of messaging help for candidates that need and want it. Boy, that's great news. As we know, Elon Musk is getting involved as well financially with the midterms. Because I know President Trump, I'm not telling anybody anything new. This is the deal breaker. If the Democrats win in the midterm, you are essentially, Trump will be a little different, but a lame duck in the sense that they'll be gumming up the works with just nonstop impeachment and the like. Hey, by the way, as we go to the break and wrap up hour number one, congratulations to Zohran Mamdani, who as of today in Gracie Mansion, where he will now live as mayor, they are currently getting their bidets installed. The socialist mayor getting their bidets, that bathroom fixture, installed in Gracie Mansion. So, good to be a communist or a socialist. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking, hour number two, coming up next.
An albino baby buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bus.
Day one of the National Glider Competition.
What matters most is that our customers, our communities, and our heroes are taken care of. We start by providing American-made gasoline, which means you can buy local, keeping America and your communities strong. We also support vital charities every year and hold Operation Give Thanks each November to help provide a better future for our veterans and their families. We're proud to support the communities we live and work in, and we're doing our best every day to make our towns a better place. Quick Fill, driving America.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
When a child is fighting a critical illness, one truth touches us all. Every child deserves a childhood. A wish sparks a ripple of hope that transforms communities far and wide. And when we grant wishes together, we create a movement of kindness, strength, and unity. Become a wishmaker today and be part of a journey that
And we welcome you to our number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. It is a little bit nasty out there, so be careful on your way into school or your way in to work. Comments from viewers. If a Republican wins mayor of New York City, they should tear out the bidets. Sure, why not? Democrats are threatening to tear out the ballroom that Trump is building at the White House. So I guess in response, that you're not wrong. I just find that interesting. Socialist mayors, Ram Mamdani, having bidets installed in Gracie Mansion. Comment from Ken. The legacy media collectively has one philosophy as far as Trump is concerned. They must be on the opposite side of anything he says, does, or accomplishes, no matter how hypocritical it makes them sound. You would think that eventually even the low-information sheeple would figure this out and stop blindly believing their propaganda. I agree, Ken. It is amazing, the hypocrisy. Even something like the Board of Peace that we talked about earlier that just got unveiled, and thank you for mentioning it to us, Ken. You look at that. Now, the way you read it, what, are Democrats against peace? I mean, and it's like what I had mentioned earlier, and we predicted on the program, and it wasn't really that difficult of a prediction. I'm just glad that we did it yesterday, and it came up very quickly. The headline was Taco. Trump always chickens out, in reference to Trump calling out tariffs on Europe over Greenland. That saw an increase in the stock market. That saw an increase in the worth of the dollar. All of these things. But again, they look at this as a negative. Even though they were against the tariffs at first, now he backs off on the tariffs, and now they're against him, quote, always chickening out. The president said he reached the framework of a future deal on Greenland with NATO. This was great news, as I had mentioned. The dollar index jumped as much as 0.27%. There's some other financial numbers that I could probably find. I don't have them right here in front of me. But looked upon as a negative by the mainstream media, just like the Peace Board, Board of Peace, where CNN says, well, there's only 20 people on there. So the framework for the Greenland deal, but he won't say if U.S. ownership is still needed. We have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region, Trump said on Truth Social. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February 1st. So again, the media saying that he chickened out. To Ken's point, you can't win for losing. We've said it before, that if he cured cancer, they'd say he was the reason for the destruction of the pharmaceutical industry. The NASDAQ, S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial Average all reacted positively to the news with modest gains as of mid-afternoon. Trump had spent months developing a crescendo of pressure on Denmark to hand over control of Greenland, insisting that nothing short of U.S. ownership would be acceptable. Keep in mind, they hated the talk of U.S. ownership, and if he says, no, we don't need ownership anymore, they'll say he chickened out on that as well. It is a blind hatred for this man that fuels the mainstream media. Asked if he still intends to acquire the vast Arctic territory through the framework deal, Trump said, it's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. I think it puts everybody in a real good position, especially as it pertains to security and minerals and everything else. Ann Kelly, White House spokeswoman, said that if this deal goes through, and President Trump is very hopeful it will, the United States will be achieving all of its strategic goals with respect to Greenland at very little cost forever. As details are finalized by all parties involved, they will be released accordingly. In an interview, Trump said that he and Root established the concept of a deal without specifying whether his yearning for U.S. expansion would be granted. The White House official told the New York Post that Trump's public posture hasn't altered his preferred endgame, however, and that the goal is to acquire Greenland. Victor Nava speculates that Trump's proposed Greenland deal may give the U.S. control of land around the military bases. That could be what it is. The Greenland would have to give the U.S. control of some of its land as part of a framework deal. The deal would allow the U.S. to perform military operations, gather intelligence, and train soldiers without obtaining permissions from the Danes, and potentially allowing the U.S. to expand into and develop land in mineral-rich parts of the Arctic island. A European official told the New York Post that Root proposed Denmark transfer to the U.S. sovereignty over the space base in northern Greenland. So also, we're going to continue to talk about this and talk about Davos, kind of 5 takeaways from far-left media, those type of stories. We'll talk about that. But also, we're going to mention that the judge in New York that found the congressional district unconstitutional, that judge having worked in the past for Governor Hochul and Andrea Stewart-Cousins, a liberal activist, I guess you would say, kind of these activist judges who would not recuse himself, even though it was his past work with Hochul, has found that one district that Ed Cox says has been around for 45 years, that district that has some of New York City in it, but is run by a Republican, that is unconstitutional, according to this, what I would say is an activist judge. So again, the Board of Peace deal, the ceremony is over. The president unveiled the International Board of Peace during the World Economic Forum in Davos. When referencing Israel's war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, he said they're down to little fires, mentioning the situation in the Palestinian enclave, which has been shattered by more than 2 years of fighting. We can put them out very easily. Again, I'm not going to read the whole list of of countries that signed on to the Board of Peace. Of course, CNN not happy. It's not enough in their mind. Trump saying we have peace in the Middle East. No one thought that was possible. Today, the world is safer, richer, and much more peaceful place than it was 1 year ago. They are going to do, basically, the Board of Peace is going to work with the United Nations. Marco Rubio emphasized that the board's first and foremost job is making sure that this peace deal in Gaza becomes enduring. The Board of Peace was, we already talked about the conceptualized time frame on that. Okay. Oh my goodness. So many comments coming in. I do appreciate that. CNN's far left take on Trump's antagonistic speech. See, they don't even hide it anymore. This is the headline from CNN. 5 takeaways from Trump's antagonistic speech in Davos. Glad you got it right out there, CNN, for making sure that we know where you stand. Not taking Greenland by force. That was one takeaway. For European leaders listening anxiously to the president's remarks on Greenland, there was 4 words in a speech of otherwise fiery rhetoric that mattered. Quote, I won't use force. It was the clearest statement yet from Trump that he would not attempt to seize Greenland using military might. Until Wednesday, the president had refused to rule it out. Taking it off the table will be a relief to officials who have been preparing for tense diplomatic confrontations with Trump to try and stave off potential war. Markets responded positively too, turning upward after a day of losses on Tuesday. Another takeaway, a historic argument, and reiterating his demand for control of Greenland, which he mistakenly called Iceland 4 times, and that was to Mark's point. The media is running with that. Trump argued in Davos that no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the U.S. Every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. Trump went on to slam Denmark as ungrateful, refusing to relinquish control of Greenland, contending that the nation owed the U.S. for defending it during World War II. Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend itself, either itself or Greenland, so the United States was then compelled, and we did it. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it, but we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? And then he had a far and wide airing of grievances, according to CNN. He took aim at a range of other targets, both old and new, at one point even belittling host Switzerland as only good because of us. He recounted a past exchange with a Swiss leader over tariffs, boasting that he decided to increase his levy on the country after she rubbed me the wrong way. We have many places like that where they're making a fortune because of the United States. Without the United States, they wouldn't be making anything. Switzerland was far from the only foreign nation to take hits from Trump. The president mocked Emmanuel Macron's beautiful sunglasses after he wore aviators indoors due to a minor eye condition, asking the crowd what the heck happened. As for Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Trump opted to issue an ominous threat. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful, but they're not. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. The list goes on and on. A subdued Trump and a stunned crowd. Well, is it subdued or is it rhetoric and fiery? Wow. CNN. Why am I reading CNN? I know that's what you're saying. You're yelling at your phone or your TV. Either way. A Europe he doesn't recognize. That was another takeaway. All right. Well, the Somali-born activist Ayana Hirsi Ali, after Trump's speech at Davos, she said Trump is right. Trump shocked other politicians and leaders gathered in Switzerland by declaring the West cannot mass import foreign cultures. The situation in Minnesota reminds us that the West cannot mass import foreign cultures, which have failed to ever build a successful society of their own. We're taking people from Somalia, and Somalia is a failed state. It's not a nation, got no government, got no police, got no military, got no nothing. The explosion of prosperity, in conclusion, and progress that built the West did not come from our tax cut. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precise inheritance that America and Europe have in common. We share it, but we have to keep it strong. We have to become stronger, more successful, and more prosperous than ever. We have to defend that culture and rediscover the spirit that lifted the West from the depths of the Dark Ages to the pinnacle of human achievement. So Hirsi Ali told Fox News, I don't think it's an important thing. I think it's the most important thing. Trump is right, and I can't think of a better and more powerful platform than that of the President of the United States to say, hey, you guys wake up. I think every American and every European should know that what the president is trying to say is what made America and Europe great is that there's this unique culture. If we don't understand that culture, and if we do not defend it, we risk losing it. The economy is very important. The military is very important. All those other aspects of government are extremely important. But more important than all that is our value system, and it's our heritage. And it's our national identity. When asked about the critique of the Somali immigrant population, Hirsi Ali said, I wholeheartedly agree with the president. The president is right when he says Somalia hasn't even made it into a nation. Every attempt at building something, making something out of Somalia has always failed because of the clan code, because of Islam, because of Marxism. We've had all the bad ideologies, and as Somalis, we've run away with them. She also said the situation in Minnesota exposed a subversive agenda in the United States to transform it and to Islamatize it using American institutions and the American vocabulary of civil rights. You see that the Somalis exploit and extract the benefit system. They tell everyone if you expose this, investigate it, object to it, stop it, you're racist, you're an Islamophobe, you are a bigot. If we keep on doing what we're doing, getting huge numbers of people from third world to come and establish themselves in the U.S. and European countries and depend on welfare benefits, that is to take and never contribute, then we're setting ourselves up not only for failure, we're committing a cultural and national and political suicide. So that's Hirsi Ali. We're going to tell you a little bit more about Davos. I see a ton of comments and waves coming in, and I really appreciate it. We'll try to get to as many of them as we possibly can in this next segment. Do I have all the waves? I think I got them all counted. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Ferrari Auto Team!
The best ski resort?
Ask Google. The best snow removal service? Ask Google.
The best Jeep dealer?
Ask Google. We did. Google reviews from customers rank Ferrario Jeep in Elmira the highest Jeep dealer in our area.
If you don't see me, I can't save you any money.
Check out the new Jeeps during the Start Something New sales event.
Visit Ferrario in Elmira or at Ferrario.com.
What sort of diva
showstoppers featuring a Glinda and Elphaba from the Broadway company of Wicked.
Quite as popular.
Good Witch Bad Witch has been thrilling audiences coast to coast with their stunning vocals and playful banter. Good Witch Bad Witch, February 5th at the Clemens Center in downtown Elmira. Tickets at clemenscenter.org.
Sophia A., grade 4, absent, because transportation was absent.
Julio M., grade 6, absent, because Wi-Fi was absent.
Maria J., grade 12, absent, because childcare for siblings was absent.
Jacob O., grade 12, absent,
because housing was absent.
Aisha S.,
Olivia H.
Darren L.
Cole W.
Preston L., absent.
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 Because healthcare, anti-bullying,
Mental health support was absent.
We're calling roll on the 15 million absent students.
Their reasons why are very real.
And yet the solution is a present, caring adult to help them along their path.
When communities and schools is present, 99% of our students are present and ready to learn.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. My goodness, we've got a ton of comments coming in as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's get to them. Here we go. Good morning, Frank. Oh, this is Rick. Rick says, unfortunately, I watched some of Trump's speech in Switzerland. What a chronic liar. My, you know when he gets behind the podium, a sense of shame and embarrassment. Oh, a sense of embarrassment comes over me. I'm sorry. It got cut up weird. So I'll reread it. When he gets behind the podium, a sense of shame and embarrassment comes over me. Is Trump really the best of who we are? Such a stain on America, pathetic. How's Iceland? I'm done for today before it even starts. I think this covers it. Thank you, Rick. Mark writes in, I'd rather have a president that tries and chickens out than a president that does nothing but sleep. Well, yes, which was what we had with Biden. But the thing is, the media presents it as Trump tries and chickens out. That's not the case. We know that this is part of the ultimate plan because we've seen it happen time and time again. The media loves to say he chickens out because they think that gets under his skin. They think that if they say, oh, see, he's a wimp. He says he's all bluster. But look what it got. It got to the negotiating table. We talked about it a million times with the art of the deal. You come in asking for 100 times more than you should, and he'll get it down to where you got more than you should have ever got from the beginning. So it's not as even if he tries and chickens out. That's the term they gave to it because they could show their bias with it, they could push their agenda, and also they think it gets under Trump's skin. But that was all part of the tactic when it came to Greenland. So you're exactly right. The past president, he didn't have any nicknames like Taco because he was only good from, what was it, 8 till 7 or something? I don't remember his time frame. Comment from a different viewer. When the press has 90% negative press on Trump, what else are the common people to think of him? How ironic that Biden had 90% positive news written about him. Yeah, if you look at some of those numbers from Newsbusters, it's amazing. But yeah, the media coverage is completely biased. And you see it just in the way that they write the headlines even now. They don't even hide it in the headlines like I mentioned with CNN. calling divisive, or I think it was something like that. I forget the word of his speech. Then only 20 countries signed on to the peace deal or the peace board. But, there's more comments. Why did I quit there? But what they're trying to, I guess, portray is that Trump was unhinged at this. And we're going to tell you what the Post editorial board had to say about it in just a moment. Comment from a different viewer. Chicken, the threat of tariffs accomplished exactly what he intended and wanted. Thank you. Plus, I think the media and the Democrats hate our president so much is because he is exposing and taking away their cash cow. This seems to me to be the only explanation for such misplaced anger, which instead should be placed elsewhere. You're exactly right, and that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention, just to show you, because we mentioned it yesterday, that they hated the tariffs, they hated the idea of using force to go into Greenland. Then when all of that looks completely off the table, the tariffs are gone, and they're working on a deal on Greenland. Now they say, he chickened out. So there was no way that Trump could win. It was a relatively easy prediction yesterday that we made. I didn't realize it would be so quick to go out there. Drudge having their headline this morning, Taco. Okay, Ken writes in, legacy media headlines. Who's running the country while Trump is spending all his time campaigning for Republicans in his effort to control America after he is finally out of power? Great headline. You're exactly right, Ken. That's exactly how they'll present his campaigning for the 2026 midterms, because Susie Wiles saying he's going to run as if it was his race to win. But boy, I'm glad he understands the importance, because it is that important. If Democrats get control at the midterm, you're looking at a lost essentially 2 years. All right, so the Post says President Trump in Davos just delivered some hard truths to the assembled attendees of Europe, who unsurprisingly resent being reminded of what a basket case they've made of their continent in just a couple of decades. Trump was blunt. Europe has squandered its inheritance. Its ruinous energy policies have resulted in deindustrialization, lower economic growth, lower standards of living, and lower birth rates. Europeans, Trump explained, are destroying themselves. Attached to its post-war sense of itself as the world's moral leader in the exercise of soft power, Europe has embraced a policy of cultural suicide and become a mass migration hub for the excess young male population of West Asia and Africa. The cultural destabilization has hollowed out European identity and destabilized civil society. Trump's comments follow remarks the night before the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who shocked a Davos dinner party by saying that globalization, the absolute sacred cow of those assembled, has failed. And that's why you had Al Gore boo in a very pathetic manner. Came up the stage and booed. Al Gore, whose predictions have all failed miserably on global warming. But we can continue. The dogma of net zero, Lutnick told its faithful attendants, is damning Europe to be subservient to China. The Davos crowd bristled at Trump's characterization of Europe and Canada as freeloaders, but their vaunted and cherished social democratic welfare states have indeed been propped up for decades by America's massive defense expenditures. The Greenland question is driving the Europeans crazy, yet the response, sending a few dozen paratroopers to perform military exercises on the icy expanse, only underlines the absurdity of the European claim to the island. How come they're ready to mount a vigorous defense of Greenland against a non-existent military threat from America when they can't find the will to stop small craft filled with African migrants from landing on their shores every day? Fact, absent American intervention, Russia or China would have no problem plucking at will the ripe fruit of Greenland to fulfill their Arctic ambitions. Media clucks over how Trump is disregarding Greenland's sovereignty. But Greenlanders have no sovereignty. They remain unaccountably subjects of tiny Denmark. Trump's criticism of Europe and the globalist outlook of Davos man was scathing. But tough love often is. Europe is sinking under the weight of its leaders' self-delusions. They need slapping in the face to wake up before it's too late. Yes, just because I know I keep mentioning it all morning. Al Gore, during Lutnick's speech, as he stepped off stage when it was over, Gore walked up to him and said, "Boo." Almost like he was trying to scare him. Well, Having seen a picture of Al Gore lately, if him yelling boo at you, it probably would scare you. It may actually make you think that you're seeing a ghost. Lutnick laughed and said, "What an honor to have Al Gore boo me." Well, the ex-vice president and failed presidential candidate confirmed he disliked the speech. I sat and listened to his remarks. I didn't interrupt him in any way. It's no secret that I think this administration's energy policy is insane, and at the end of his speech, I reacted with how I felt, and so did several others. Well, I know that's very important. What Al Gore's opinion is of me or my speech, a non-entity. But the Commerce Department spokesperson said no one left hastily. Only one person booed, and it was Al Gore. All right, let's take a break. We're going to read your comments when we come back. There are a lot of them. We're having a blast with all these comments. It's been a busy couple days. Everybody is weighing in on all the topics, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. As we keep mentioning, Trump unveiled the Board of Peace during the signing ceremony in Davos. Also, as just a second of housekeeping here, don't forget tomorrow Sheriff Allard will be on the program, so make sure you get your questions in. That is a live interview, but if you can get your questions in ahead of time, that's also appreciated. Stay with us.
New York State is putting nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. LeCom Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
At McGuire, we know buying a car is a big decision, so we made it a little easier. With our pre-owned 30-day exchange policy, if you don't love your car, truck, or SUV, return it within 30 days or 1,000 miles. Not liking the color, model, payment, whatever the reason, we'll give you the full value toward another car at McGuire, no questions asked. That's car buying with no regrets. McGuire, right by you.
Ever lose your keys? Is that normal aging, dementia, or something else? Fear often stops us from asking for a simple checkup from the neck up. Knowing your numbers, blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol are common, but your cognitive numbers are also important, especially if you're age 65 or older. Better to act sooner rather than later if you want to maintain or enhance your brain's health. Hello, I'm Kevin, President of the Dementia Society of America, a national nonprofit organization. I'm excited to offer you a free guide filled with tips for better brain health and important facts about dementia, care planning, and much more. Go to 1-800-DEMENTIA.org or call 1-800-DEMENTIA. Your brain will thank you.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Some viewer comments. It's probably safe to say Rick was one of the protesters, or maybe he just hides behind his phone. Love your show, Frank. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that kind comment. Coming from a different viewer. Oh, from Ken. Ken writes in, Frank, wow, so Biden wasn't an embarrassment and was a president to be proud of? I guess so. Who's saying that? But yes, I would say that apparently is the case to some in the audience. Comment from a different viewer. Why am I getting all distracted here? Al Gore should get in touch with Climate Fact Friday Bob to be educated on environmental realities and truths. I agree. So if Al Gore is watching, please, by all means, contact us. Be happy to get you Climate Fact Friday Bill's phone number. Okay, Gordon Chang says that appeasing China won't save Europe, and Trump's hard power just might. And this is kind of in reference because we have a lot of international updates. Americans and Europeans trying to accommodate Beijing and Moscow refused to defend that order when they had the chance. Trump, to his credit, is taking the world as it is. He is using American power to secure America. By doing so, he is making the world safe for Europe as well. Now, we mentioned Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom thought he could bring his show on the road, so to speak, and speak at Davos and do his whole trolling of Trump. He called many of those in the room pathetic for helping Trump, for appeasing Trump, used some inappropriate sexually charged language. He even called the Nobel Peace Prize winner Macondo pathetic for giving Trump the Peace Prize. Well, Richie Greenberg says Governor Gavin Newsom, and the reason I mention this, remember, Gavin Newsom is, we're being told over and over again by the media, is the front runner for president in 2028 as the head of the Democrat presidential ticket. Gavin Newsom jetted off this week to heckle President Trump at the World Economic Forum, and he ultimately failed spectacularly. In yet another glimpse into the unserious, trolling, king of pulling stunts pattern of his, grandstanding, slick preaching, hurling insults at Trump, and positioning himself as a global moral authority, all while the state he governs descends deeper into chaos. And Trump even had nice words to say about him. So that came off making him look even more poorly. It made him come off looking poorly. And this guy wants to be president. Newsom seeks to damage America, swinging like a Barbie on a wrecking ball rather than embracing our nation's rise. He tried and failed to coax world leaders over to his own misguided side instead of rallying for a unified American resurgence after 4 years of the disaster under Biden-Harris. Speaking off the cuff at Davos's forum, Newsom shamefully lectured and berated European leaders for rolling over on Trump's national security, migration, and trade policies, using demeaning sexual innuendo and demanding those head of state grow a spine, accusing them of complicity in what he painted as authoritarian behavior. He dismissed Trump's speech, which recapped a year of dramatic improvements in America's economy, getting a handle on crime, and tightly securing our border, as boring and insignificant, likening the president to a T-Rex that world leaders must either mate with or be devoured by. He told reporters that traditional diplomacy with Trump amounted to stupidity, claiming leaders were being played. He couldn't have been more wrong, and his inflammatory heckling on foreign soil earned swift and proper condemnation. As mentioned earlier that a viewer sent in, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent skewered Newsom as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, calling him economically illiterate and perhaps less knowledgeable than even Kamala Harris. It's notable, too, that Newsom attended Davos alongside billionaire Nepo baby Alex Soros, who described him as a close friend and the real star of the Davos Forum. Consider the contrast. Newsom, the wrecker, destroying things. Meanwhile, Trump, Bessent, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who gave a brilliant talk at Davos, are builders, repairing the damage done across America under Biden-Harris's open borders, pro-criminal, leftist agenda. This is not Newsom's first clown show at the World Economic Forum. It is well-trodden ground. He attended multiple times since his days as San Francisco mayor, earning the derisive nickname Davos Democrat for prioritizing elite global networking over crises at home. Indeed, thanks to his inside track with the Willie Brown machine, Gavin's been honing his skills, or rather his talk and his image, for decades. By design, his sharp attacks on Trump resonate in left-wing progressive media, where outlets frame his rhetoric as courageous resistance rather than the reckless divisiveness it is. And we've talked about that in the past. This works with kind of the primary vote that he needs, a far-left primary vote. So they call him courageous. They think he's heroic for being a part of that resistance. And boy, they told us his tweets trying to copy Trump style were the funniest thing you ever read. We read some of those. I've said it before, and you can ask Jeb Bush. Trying to emulate Trump just does not work. You may think you're funny, and there's a lot of comedians getting a lot of attention that think they're funny, and it's just trite. It's just cliche. It's boring at this point. Those can do an impression of them. those that tweet out like him. So Gavin Newsom not even coming up with a new idea. I mean, the stealing of his style was done back in 2016, but that's his shtick, right? And he thinks it's a winning formula because at the end of the day, if he wants to be president, he needs to win that presidential primary. So he has to cater to the far left because there would be Democrat voters. So he's got to do things like attack Trump. He's also, and I would not be surprised if he'll be one of the first to pass the litmus test. And the Democrats' litmus test, put out there by Eric Swalwell not that long ago, is to declare that you will tear down the ballroom at the White House. Why? For no other reason, even though it's very practical, and both Democrat and Republican administrations have said in the past there should be a bigger room. It should not be a scenario where they're renting heaters to be on the front lawn. This is a necessity at the White House. But they will tear it down for one reason and one reason only, because it was built under the Trump administration by Trump and private money. So don't think for a moment Gavin Newsom won't be a part to pass that litmus test and say that he'll tear down the ballroom. But I'll continue. These platforms cast him as a defender, this meaning Newsom, of democratic values, conveniently ignoring the stark contradiction. A governor who rails against federal chaos while presiding over profound disorder in California and working to undermine the nation's trajectory toward recovery and strength. California is not a sovereign nation state, despite Newsom's notorious 2020 claim. That boastful hyperbole revealed delusion and a flirtation with separatism, disregarding with grandiose arrogance the state's constitutional subordination to federal authority. The governor cannot conduct independent foreign policy, yet his Davos performance suggested otherwise by promoting California as an alternative to Trump's America. This opportunistic, blusterous theater fails to mask the truth. Newsom is a wrecker who excels at demolition, not construction. And then came Greenland, the subject of Newsom's meltdown. America protected the territory during World War II, then returned it to Denmark to administer. But many now view the island as a sitting duck. And today, the prospect of a Greenland in the hands of adversaries is not tolerable. Trump foresaw that for strategic purposes and to ward off advances from Russia and China, Greenland cannot exist as is in the Northern Hemisphere. Trump is building America's defenses via his approach to the island. He said on Wednesday that the United States would essentially acquire Greenland by agreement, not by force. And of course, we talked about the outline there, the framework. By the way, the market rallied nearly 600 points by closing because of that framework. Trump won again. And remember, the media is presenting that as Trump chickening out. So they hate his policy on Greenland before. Now that he ultimately got to his goal in this framework and making a deal, the art of the deal, now they're calling him a chicken. But I'll continue. Trump won again, and Newsom's entire wreck Trump narrative and outburst to world leaders continue to unravel. While the governor brushes off critics with talk of California derangement syndrome, the evidence is undeniable. He is a wrecker who tears down, a heckler who shouts from the world stage, and an opportunist who exploits the spotlight. And that's what I'm saying about him copying Trump's style. I do think it's pathetic when he does things like calling it California derangement syndrome. It plays again into his shtick, but it just comes off pathetic to me. But meanwhile, his own state, Newsom's state, pays the steep price of his relentless destruction. Keep in mind, he'll be campaigning for president. He'll be out in places like Davos, while California, with all their struggles, has no governor, essentially. But we've got a lot of comments come in, and we've got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Dear Winter, we're coming. Our squad of vehicles, with all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, is ready to take you on. Safety's the name of our game. Bundle up. Toyota.
Right now, you can lease Tacoma for just $259 a month or get 2.99% APR for a full 72 months on a new Tundra. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota. Let's go places.
It's great to catch up, Jamie. How's business?
Good. Are you up to speed with the new beneficial ownership reporting requirements?
Sort of. What's it about?
It's a new initiative to help fight crimes like money laundering, fraud, and drug trafficking. A lot of small businesses like ours just have to report some basic info to the federal government about the real people behind them.
Does that include my cafe?
There are some exemptions for certain companies, but don't worry. There's lots of guidance on the government's website about who needs to file. Check out fincen.gov/BOI. Filing is easy and free. It took me less than 20 minutes.
Looks like I do have to file. Thanks, Jamie. It's great having a supportive business community.
Reporting beneficial ownership information helps protect U.S. national security. Filing is quick, secure, and free. And it's the law. Learn more at fincen.gov/.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer, just a comment about Newsom. He's a loser. Newscum, as Trump calls him. He's a loser. Also, the mayor who visited, was it Guyana? I know she was out of the country. Knowing that California was burning seems to have disappeared. Yeah, Mayor Bass. Yeah, the media moved away from that story as quickly as they could, that she was out of the country. She kind of misled about it for a while, too. There's a lot of backtracking. She did not handle that very well. Karen Bass, right? Mayor Bass. I don't know what she's up to now. I have not heard. Probably staying out of the limelight if she can try. Ken writes in, after I watched an episode of a show called Stranger Things, it dawned on me why the sheeple think the way they do. They're living in the upside down. Well, thank you, Ken. I'm sure some viewers understand that reference, and I do appreciate it. I have not caught that program, but I do appreciate the reference. I'm sure many others do as well. And Ken continues in a different topic. Al Gore and Climate Fact Friday Bob in a debate. That'd be interesting. Bob would bring facts, science, and logic in an effort to educate the public on the real facts associated with a planet that is and has always been in flux. Al Gore would bring scare tactics and misinformation in an effort to get America to adopt his carbon credit plans nationwide, which would make him an instant billionaire if he's not. I think he is already, right? We talked about, even think of the hypocrisy of him being in Davos. Why he's in Davos beats me, probably so we can talk about the environment, but undoubtedly flying there in a private jet of some sort while asking you to live as if you're in a third world country. Now, the mission of the Board of Peace, and we talked about Trump unveiling the Board of Peace charter early this morning, right actually in the beginning of our broadcast. CNN critical saying there's only 20 countries on there. That's like, oh, he didn't even stop 8 wars. And then you name them and they don't count. Now, I read that list earlier of the 20 countries. But Jonathan Shainzer says President Trump is making big moves the world over, whether it's nabbing Nicolas Maduro, threatening the conquest of Greenland, and we know that that framework has been released on Greenland, and again, that has caused the media to attack him for chickening out. Think of that. And the Ukraine-Russian ceasefire deal in the works, which I understand, according to Steve Witkoff, that the Ukraine peace talks are down to just one issue. If both sides want to solve this, we're going to get it solved, Witkoff said. That it's made a lot of progress. Trump even saying that if Russia and Ukraine can't come to an agreement, it would be stupid if they failed to come together and get a deal done. So just down to one issue. But I'll continue. The World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos is still buzzing about how Trump's foreign policy plate is full. Overshadowed by these bigger headlines, but no less important, is Trump's newly minted Board of Peace. The board is designed to implement the president's 20-point peace plan for the war-torn Gaza Strip, as endorsed verbatim by the UN Security Council back in November. Notable critics include French President Emmanuel Macron, asserting that Trump, through his new board that he personally and indefinitely oversees, is trying to supplement the United Nations as part of a wider overhaul of the international system that in the wake of World War II produced the UN, NATO, and many other organizations that are steadily losing relevance today. One can understand Emmanuel Macron's concern. The board's charter does not mention Gaza, but describes a broader mission to promote stability and secure peace in any area threatened by conflict. That sounds a lot like the UN. And if you listen to Trump's speech, he said it would kind of work in conjunction with the UN. However, according to Trump administration officials speaking off the record, the Board of Peace has not been conceived as a direct challenge to the UN. Rather, it would be seen as one of several entities like the G20 or the World Bank Group that could help nudge a flailing UN in the right direction. It is also not a military alliance, whereas NATO is. Nevertheless, some countries are anxious that the board will undermine NATO's purpose as an alliance designed to counter Russian influence. And then, to the horror of everyone at Davos, Trump invited Putin to join the board. This comes at a time when NATO is facing unprecedented strain over the dispute between Washington and European capitals over the fate of Greenland and military support for Ukraine. The coming months will give a clearer sense of where the board is headed. Gaza is an enormous challenge. The board would be wise to deal with that situation first before pivoting to other international conflicts. The Trump administration has already made some initial steps, forming a subcommittee within the board that will be responsible for managing Gaza. Prominent American and international figures have joined, even as France and Germany have declined. A Palestinian figure now sits atop the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, and momentum is slowly building for Hamas-free Gaza. Still, the board's key task, disarming Hamas terrorists and installing an international stabilization force, remain ahead. However, the inclusion of figures representing Qatar and Turkey, both long-standing and continued patrons of Hamas, raises an uncomfortable question. Will Doha and Ankara continue to back their terrorist client in Gaza, or will they work with the Trump administration to end Hamas rule in Gaza and begin restructuring of the Strip? While some critics have charged that the board is Trump's international loyalty test, this perception could actually be to Trump's benefit. He should demand that Qatar and Turkey banish Hamas from their territories and end all support. This could be the condition for their continued inclusion. If Gaza becomes a success story, then one could easily imagine the board addressing other global challenges, from the Russia war against Ukraine to the appalling humanitarian crisis triggered by the conflict in Sudan. The jackals at the UN are watching nervously. If Trump succeeds, it will be a further sign of their failures. Also on, we got to take a break. Wow. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
This isn't your father's library. Create with the 3D printer. Release your inner audio engineer or sewing machine rentals, all with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Companies don't make money by paying claims. They make money by denying them. They hire doctors to say you're not that hurt. They bring in lawyers to chip away at your case. They stall, they argue, they cut corners, because every dollar they save is another dollar of profit. At WDC Injury Law, we know their tactics, and we fight back with facts and evidence. If you've been injured in New York or Pennsylvania, call 607-500-HURT. Don't let the insurance companies control your story.
Tide isn't just a gentle ebb and flow. It's a mighty force of change. Just like the tide shapes our shorelines, we can shape our planet's future and protect the world's oceans from its biggest threats. Help us turn the tide. Join Oceania's wave of ocean advocates who are making a difference in the world.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A couple other international stories. Oh my goodness, we got to talk about that New York report as well. But Trump aims to topple Cuba's communist regime by the end of the year, according to a new report. The Trump administration is searching for Cuban government insiders who could help the U.S. push the existing communist leaders out of power, according to the Wall Street Journal. A concrete plan for doing away with the communist government that has ruled Cuba for nearly 70 years has not yet been developed, but the government's grip on the island has never been more fragile. Also, the Post editorial board says that Trump has unfinished business in Iran. He must do better than Obama and take action for the protesters. We know he used very strong language in the past. Oh, by the way, thank you to those who sent in questions. I didn't want to read them on the air. We'll read them tomorrow for Sheriff Allard. Sheriff Allard will be on the program tomorrow. I meant to mention that. But I think the Post raises a good point. So we hope it is a case of when, not if, Trump attacks. For the sake of the protesters he encouraged and the wider world. Trump has demonstrated plenty of toughness, so breaking his word to the people of Iran won't make him look as craven as Obama, but it will lead allies and adversaries to take any future threats with a Tehran-sized grain of salt. All right. Oh, boy, we have a couple things about ICE, too. Well, we mentioned, and it's worth mentioning, we're going to talk about ICE quickly as well. J.D. Vance is going to visit Minnesota. I believe it is today. And now immigration enforcement operations have expanded to Maine. We're learning that. House Democrat leaders are going to oppose DHS funding bill as the party rages over ICE. So Hakeem Jeffries and his team told members in a private meeting that they'll vote no, but Democrat opposition is unlikely to sink the funding bill. Democrat Caucus Chairman P. Aguilar said, in the last 24 hours, we've heard our members speak loudly that ICE isn't doing enough. These reforms aren't doing enough. The lawlessness has to stop. And they are only doing this because they can. They are only doing this because the President of the United States wants to use them to terrorize communities, to terrorize U.S. citizens. Now, Gabrielle Holderman says, will Chuck fight? Chuck Schumer, that is. Protesters call on Schumer to use leverage to rein in ICE and block DHS. So will he now have a government shutdown? Remember, they had the longest government shutdown in history because of their position on Obamacare. Will they do it again for ICE, or the stopping of ICE? So already this is kind of a warning the media is giving to Chuck Schumer. Are you going to fight? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You better be careful. We've got a few things on that in New York. NYPD detectives who were mistaken for ICE were treated rudely by a hospital staff after they scuffled with a suspect, even saying them to go somewhere else. They suggested they go somewhere else because they thought they were ICE. This is becoming socially acceptable, folks. Protests in churches are becoming socially acceptable. We're wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. We've got 2 New York updates, and then maybe, if we have a chance, a little bit more about ICE. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Youth Clubs provides professional and technical assistance to all our affiliate clubs all around the world. We already have 44 countries that are behind us providing safe spaces for kids, but there are 160 other countries we'd like to reach out to. Yeah. Right, Rod? Exactly. We need you to help fund the World Youth Clubs and make their dream come true.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. I can't wait for ICE to come to New York City, says a viewer. That will be a lot of fun. And we'll put Mom Donnie in his place. Thank you very much. Comment from Ken: if you believe Google, Al Gore is only worth a paltry $300 million, mostly due to his green energy investment firm, which pays him $2 million a year, and from his speaking fees. His green energy investment firm controls controls 36 billion currently, and would explode exponentially if carbon credits were mandated nationwide. I forgot that the camera there, but yes, wow, think of that. Yeah, poor guy. How's he make it on $300 million? I do appreciate it, Ken. Thank you for doing the research for us. A couple of New York State issues. Thank you to Congressman Langworthy. Langworthy secured $480,000 for Elmira College technology upgrades to strengthen their STEM education and research. The congressman saying investing in education and innovation is an investment in our future. This funding will ensure Elmira College students, the majority of whom are local to our state and region, have access to the modern technology and tools they need to compete, conduct meaningful research, and prepare for in-demand careers. Workforce development and strengthening our talent pool of skilled workers must be a priority if we're going to attract good-paying jobs to our region. So thank you to Congressman Langworthy. As I mentioned, a judge ruled the lines of New York City's only GOP House district are unconstitutional. Judge Jeffrey Perlman, who previously worked for Governor Kathy Hochul. People had asked him to recuse himself from this case because he was a former staffer for Kathy Hochul and State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins. He refused, he declined to recuse himself, and now a district that has been essentially the same way, what did Ed Cox say, for 45 years, something like that, has now been deemed unconstitutional, which is clearly a partisan ruling. As Ed Cox, the chairman of the Republican committee, said, this was a partisan ruling made by a partisan judge in a case brought by a notoriously partisan attorney. Now, it was ruled that the district in Staten Island and Brooklyn were unconstitutional because it cut out minority voters in a decision likely to be appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. Overturning the maps outside the usual 10-year cycle that follows the census is necessarily, Perlman ruled, citing a provision of the New York State Constitution ostensibly to ensure voting rights for minority groups. Ed Cox wrote, Kathy Hochul and Albany Democrats did not alter this district when they had a chance in 2024. This entire exercise is a cynical attempt to enact an illegal partisan gerrymander under the guise of a voting rights case. Now, as I mentioned, Perlman refused to recuse himself from the case. The redistricting decision is a complete sham. They're trying to fracture our community because they don't like how we vote, said Staten Island GOP Chair Michael Tenosis. Democrats and their allies, suddenly aggrieved with the lines that they were fine with implementing 2 election cycles ago, cheered the decision. All right. Good article at USA Today this morning by Nicole Russell. ICE protesters are storming churches now. This has to stop. I don't like the optics of an ICE agent banging down a person's door either. But you know what I like even less? The fact that Laken Riley might be alive today if her murderer hadn't been free. Wow. Protesters' outrage over Good's death is somewhat misguided. She was impeding the work of federal law enforcement, attempting to use her vehicle to hurt an agent. Now their anger over her death and the existence of ICE agents at large in Minnesota seem to have crossed the line, storming a church over a victim in defense of illegal immigrants whose victims across the country never get the same righteous indignation. That does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I got to thank everyone for all the amazing comments throughout the morning. I want to remind you that Sheriff Jim Allard from right here in Steuben County, he'll be our guest tomorrow morning, so make sure you get your questions in for him. And make sure you join us every weekday morning, starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, as we'll be joined by the Sheriff. I look forward to it already.